is we do stream from a few other platforms, but that is only for a short portion of the show. And those other platforms are usually YouTube, X, I don't think TikTok, but Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah,
so if you are
YouTube and Facebook.
And Facebook, okay. So if you are watching on any of those other platforms, you will have to come over to 2rawfortv.tv to see the entirety of the show. And that is the number 2, raw, the number 4, tv.tv. And again, thank you for being here tonight. And if you are watching on those other platforms, please come over on those platforms and join us right here on 2rawfortv. Now, with that being said, I want to go ahead and get right into the main topic of the night. And that is the whites-only community in Arkansas that lots of people have been talking about online. The story has gained a lot of traction. There's several different content creators and things like that talking about the story. And I just wanted to talk about that tonight because there are varying opinions on the whites-only community. Some people say, well, whatever, who cares? Some are saying that's outrageous, it's separatist, it's prejudice, it's racist, it's discriminatory, all of those things. So they're all varying opinions. A lot of black people are saying they don't care. But there is another dynamic to it that I was in that percentage of black people that said they didn't care. And it wasn't until I was listening to one of Tariq Nasheed's shows, actually, where he had a Twitter space, and someone called in and made a very, very valid point about these whites-only hubs, communities, whatever you want to call them. And I will explore that, that caller's point in a moment. But before I get further into it, I would like to play a video that will give you all a little bit of background on what this community is and why these people are saying they have created this community that they're looking to expand to other states in the nation. Well, it needs to be ready right away, regardless. Yeah, well, while the video is getting prepared, like I said, I was one of those people that said I didn't really care. And, to an extent, I really don't care. I mean, I don't really see a problem with people forming their own communities and living among people that they feel share their values and things like that. But again, yeah, well, we're going to go ahead and play the video, and then, once you all see what this community is and why these folks said they started this community, I'll come back and further explain my.
No blacks, no Jews, no gays. High up in the Ozark Hills, in the state of Arkansas, dozens of people have been working hard, building houses and a new type of community. It's called Return to the Land, and it is a town open to white people only. They are millennials and Gen Z, and this is a new update of age-old prejudice.
What we've done here is establish a place where we have control over who our neighbors are, and that is just for the sake of preserving, our culture.
And that culture, effectively, we're saying this is a white culture, a whites-only place.
White American culture.
But what this sounds like is bringing back segregation. Is that a fair assessment?
It's free association. So we're not trying to keep other people down. This is a small settlement in the middle of the Ozarks.
But they are being kept out, even if...
Well, I mean, you don't let everyone into your home.
Around 40 people live here. Hundreds more from across the world have paid to be members. And while the men do the physical labour, the women take care of the children who live here full time. It could be a very loving community if you're part of the community, but if you're black, or if you're Jewish, or if you're gay, you can't be part of that community.
they can have their own communities, and they already do.
You might be wondering how any of this can be legal. Return to the Land is structured as a private members association, which they believe allows them to discriminate on the basis of ethnicity, along with other factors. That has yet to be tested in the courts and may well fail. The Arkansas Attorney General has said his office is now reviewing the matter as a result of our reporting, and that there is no room for racial discrimination in Arkansas or anywhere in a free society. No blacks, no Jews, no gays. High up in the Ozark Hills in the state of Arkansas, dozens of people have been working hard, building houses and a new type of community. It's called Return to the Land.
American-only community, no blacks, no gays, no Jews. And the Jew thing always kind of tickled me because I'm like, Jews are white, and how are you gonna know if someone is Jewish unless they tell you? But anyway, that's a different story for a different time. Again, like I said, I was in the group of people when I first heard this story, and I was like, I really don't care. And like I said, to a degree, I still really don't care because, again, they said that they want to live among white Americans and they want to be in a community with white American culture, white American values, and, culture, customs, whatever. And while I was listening to Tariq's show, there were a lot of people calling in who were furious. I wouldn't say furious, but they didn't agree.
Okay, one second. Before you get too far, right? Just shout outs to everybody that's listening on Instagram, watching on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Do remember that you're not going to get the whole show air on any of these social media platforms, right? So come on over to 2rawfortv.tv. Again, that's the number 2 raw, the number 4 tv.tv, right? Come on over and enjoy the rest of the show because we will not be here for long.
You said there was a comment or something like that?
No, not necessarily.
So yeah, like I said, I was watching Tariq's show, his X or Twitter space or whatever you call it, and there was a white guy who called in defending this, which is to be expected. And his argument was, this is a private community, a private association, members only. And that is, I guess, the loophole that they're using to say, we don't want anybody in this community who isn't white. And obviously straight and white, and I would assume of the Christian faith or whatever. He said white American culture and customs. That's usually Christian. But like I said, I was one of the people in the number of people who said I don't care. And like I said, to a degree, I really still don't care because I don't have a problem with people wanting to be in a community with people that they feel share their values and culture and customs and all of that type of stuff. But one of the callers called into the show and asked the white guy who called in defending this settlement or community or whatever you want to call it. And, he was like, well, what is white culture? And the guy couldn't answer the question. He kept deflecting from it. And I'm not going to say that white people don't have culture. Culture to me is shared customs, food and music and, things like that. It could be your religion too. Your religion could be part of your culture. So just those shared customs. So I'm not going to say that white people don't have a culture because culture are those, consists of those things that I just mentioned. But another caller called in and said that they wouldn't have a problem with this if white people's culture didn't consist of violence. And then she went into the history of how, in these white-only hubs, a lot of times these people are, they're there among themselves, and they are coming up with ways to, I guess, stage violent attacks against people and things like that. And anybody who knows the history of America knows that that's a fact. So then that's when my eyebrows begin to raise, because I'm like, given the history of these people, and if we're going to be honest, a part of their culture is extreme violence. And that is something that, people don't want to talk about. They want to deflect from it, and they want to, skate around it and try to make it seem like it's not something that is real, that we can point to in their history and even their current, the present. We can point to and say, hey, this is a very violent group of people. And, we don't know what it is that they're doing or planning to do when they go into these all white supremacist hubs. Because honestly speaking, it is a white supremacist ideology to say, okay, we don't want blacks here, we don't want Jews here, we don't want gays here. You hear a lot of white extremists, mirroring those same talking points. So honestly, even though I don't see an issue with people going among people that they feel they share customs and culture with and things like that, but when it comes to this particular group of people, I do feel like people have the right to be concerned. People have the right to say, okay, what is really the point here? Is this a cover? Are you all using this, we want to go among ourselves, and because we want our shared culture and our white American society? And is that going to lead to something more sinister? And that is why, the people who were concerned about this have called into different podcasts that are discussing this, and, are voicing their concerns about what these people are really up to. And like I said, given the historical premise of how we've seen these all-white enclaves, do certain things that led to violence against others, I say these people are well within their rights to have caution about, these communities. Now, this man said they're not looking to hold anyone down, and they're way off in some secluded area and things like that. And, this could be harmless, but at the same time, I'm not going to fault the people who are like, okay, what is this really about? Because, these people, this is the problem that I have with people with that ideology, Caucasian people with that ideology. Like I said, I don't really have an issue with them wanting to live among themselves. That's fine. But one of the other things that the guy who was kind of, the spokesperson for the spokesperson in the video talking about the community and things like that, there was another clip of him saying that they feel like society is messed up. Okay. I guess somebody has a problem with what I said. It says this particular group of people, ? Really? Violence is universal. Yes, violence is universal. Every group of people has the propensity to be violent. This comment is coming from Facebook, and this individual, I won't call his name, but he says violence is universal, and then he said this particular group of people, really? I mean, I'm not trying to offend anyone, but if we're going to be, you know what, scratch that. If you're offended, you know, it's not my intention to offend anyone. But at the same time, we're not going to sit here and ignore over 1,000 years of history. That's disingenuous. And honestly, this particular group of people have a very violent history. Yes, they do. And that is what people were concerned about. Like, people are trying to act like this is something that doesn't exist, but it does. And when you're dealing with a group of people that have massacred and committed genocide against various groups of people across the planet, then yes, people have the right to be concerned. So, I mean, that's really nothing to be offended by. You really just have to be honest about what has happened.
And the phone number is on the screen, right? Phone number to call in is 470-666-2194. So if you if you do want to voice your opinion, go ahead and voice,
Yeah, I'm not gonna cuss anybody out if they disagree. I'm not gonna cuss you out, but I am gonna let you know, like, I'm not just sitting here saying stuff to be saying it. I mean, there's historical records of the genocides and the violence right here in this very nation that we're sitting in right now. So this is not me just trying to pick on anybody. These are historical facts. And like I said, people have the right to be concerned because they want to know, okay, first of all, you already have a white supremacist mindset, which white supremacy and violence really go hand in hand. So, what is really the point? And what I was about to say was this gentleman in the video that, is, I guess, their spokesperson for their community. He is saying, like I said in another clip that I didn't play, but that's a pretty long video, but he was talking about how he feels like society is in ruins and they want to get away from that. They don't want to be a part of this society that we're living in right now. And it's kind of like, well, what society have you been living in since the inception of America? Because 9 times out of 10, I won't say 9 times out of 10, because a lot of white people in America are immigrants. So they weren't here during the inception of America, but regardless to whatever, historical facts are historical facts. When settlers, or whatever you want to call them, I call them invaders, I call them colonizers, when they came to this land that is now America, there were already people here. So you invaded a land that already had inhabitants. So it's like you don't want to be around other people, but you came into a land where people were already here. You didn't come into a vacant land. So, like I said, it doesn't make any sense to me why these people are acting like society is just so ruined and they had nothing to do with it. If we're going to be honest, majority of the people in our government, and I place a lot of the blame for how our nation is. I do place a lot of the blame on the government, but the government consists of people. So there has been people in the government that have been instrumental in ruining, and I don't think society is completely ruined. I would never say that because I don't believe that's true. But there's a lot of things that are going on in society today that are detrimental to us. So the people who, are mostly at fault for that are the people that have been in our government. And, I'll just use the black community as an example, because these people like him, they always talk about black society and how our culture is terrible and how we just commit all these crimes and we're just these terrible people. we can't get right. But again, if we're going to be honest, a lot of the hindrance that has happened to Black society has been at the hands of this very government. This government is the reason why we see a lot of the things that we see going on in the Black community today. And yes, people do have to have some level of accountability, but when you're talking about a system that has worked against a group of people for generation after generation after generation, and then you're expecting for these people to just be living this, just be living this lifestyle that is just perfect, that is being extremely disingenuous, because one of the biggest things that harm the Black community is when the drug or crack epidemic hit our community.
All right, here's what it shows. Let's break away from all these social medias, right? We've had enough. It's been 20-something minutes. Guys got to come over to rawfortv.tv. Again, that's the number 2, raw, right? RAW, the number 4, TV.tv, right? Come on over. Big news coming up very shortly. We got a lot of things going on in the background, guys, but just come on over, you know what I mean? And yeah, the show will continue there, but we're gonna one by one.
All right, we got a call coming in as you're saying that, so we're gonna go ahead and take that.
We'll take this call and
all right, caller, you're live.
Social media, bye-bye. We can't hear him.
Why would you as a Black person? That's what our problem is now. We want to be amongst all these people and just like white people. Tell people that hate Black people, why would you want to move there? What is the selling point to move into these white enclaves? They already have these white enclaves. They have them in Atlanta now. They outprice all the Black people, gentrify, and then go amongst each other. So my whole thing is, people talk about coons in our community, but the coons are going to get it first. And they always get it first when they are in proximity to fellow people. Look what happened to Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp made off all that money to that girl, made this white girl a millionaire before he made his own daughter a millionaire. And now ESPN has cut his coon check. They gave him a reality